Well, it had been 2 years since that original Ghostbusters film hit theaters, and as was the case with many successful film properties at the time, the next logical step was a Saturday morning cartoon and a toy line, and that's exactly what we got. Hey everyone, my name is Perry, and welcome back to the Cassette Phase. So continuing on with our loosely themed Halloween content here on the channel, today I want to revisit one of my favorite childhood cartoons and toy lines, the real Ghostbusters. Because, like many of you I'm sure, I loved the original 1984 Ghostbusters movie, and I still do, but I never really found any true appreciation for it as a kid until after I became familiar with the Saturday morning cartoon. So I'd like to share some history and some background and some personal memories of this great old cartoon and the toy line that released right alongside it. And we're also going to spend some time over at the Ottoman taking a close-up look at some of the real Ghostbusters related items that I have here in the collection. And as kind of an added bonus, we're going to unbox my Kenner re-release Ecto-1, take it out, put it together, and see if we can't recreate some of that new toy magic that we felt as kids in the 80s. We also have a really fun, unrelated item to look at in today's time capsule. So the nostalgia is going to run deep today. Sound like fun to you? Come hang out. Okay everyone, welcome back to the Ottoman, and welcome to another great day here in the den. Over on the CRT today, I've got, of course, some real Ghostbusters going. I just had to. I had to get myself in the right frame of mind for today's video. But before we get more into the real Ghostbusters, we're going to do today's time capsule, which is an item that I'm really excited about because I guess you could consider this a toy. This is something that I found up in the attic a few weeks back when I was getting down my Halloween decorations. And sadly, this is something that happens to me from time to time. I guess I'm just getting older. I had forgotten that I had picked this up at a convention probably 2-3 years ago. And it was just up there in a bin. And I hope that it still works. And we're going to find out today because this is one of the earliest toys that I can ever remember having. And one of the things that actually kind of taught me how to read. My parents would tell me that I was reading certain things before I went to school, and thinking back on it, it was due to things like this here, this VTech learning window. Now just check out the 80s aesthetic on this thing first. This is one of those objects that I had completely forgotten about. It had been erased from my own internal memory until I saw this thing at a toy show. And, it just came flooding back. And I love the way this thing looks. The colors, just kind of the shape of it. It's just very, very much a product of its time. And it had all these different little activities on it. I didn't do a lot of these. I remember using it for Hangman and maybe like that word scramble. But that was about it. This was... I was probably not even going, like I said, I wasn't even in school yet. This was probably 4 or 5 years old when I had this thing. So what I want to do today, and this could be a huge bust because I didn't test it ahead of time. I've got some batteries, some C batteries, and I'm going to try to put them in. I did check and make sure that the battery compartment wasn't corroded. And I'm going to have to do this with 2 hands. So I'm going to put you down for a second, but yeah, I did check that the battery compartment had no corrosion at all. So hopefully I put these batteries in there and we're going to unlock some memories when this thing actually turns on and starts making sound. Hopefully, fingers crossed. I'll be right back with you. Okay, so I got really excited when I put the batteries in and it started beeping at me. I thought that's a good sign. And as you can see, the display is working, but, and this is gonna be hard to get. Let me see if I can get some more light on it for you. It's telling me to select the activity, but then when I press something, it doesn't do anything. In fact, even if I try to turn it off, yeah, it doesn't seem that any of the buttons are working. I'm just getting like the screensaver, the archaic version of a screensaver with this little digital car going by, and then I think you get an airplane too. Let's see. Yeah, right now it's just stuck on car. You know, so I don't know. I might do some fidgeting with it, see if I need to like clean some contacts, or, you know, go through and see if there's anything that I can do. I was actually going to be shocked if it was fully functioning, but I was hopeful. Either way, like I said, the memories that I have of this thing, and I'm going to actually take the batteries out so it stops beeping at us so I can share a couple of memories before I move on. Be right back. But yeah, like I was saying, the memories that I have of this thing, the den at the house that we lived in at the time, I remember it had like a big tall stone, like faux stone fireplace that I would lay up, you know, on the carpet right in front of that thing and play with this. And there were other times when, I don't know if my parents had gotten a new refrigerator or like a new washer and dryer, but I had a huge box, you know, a big cardboard box. And I filled that thing up with all of my stuffed animals, which filled it, you know, over halfway, close to the top, and then jumped up on the couch and jumped into that box and sat in it and played with my learning window. Isn't it strange, the things that you remember? But yeah, so, okay. Like I said, I played the Hangman a lot, and then there's also a spelling challenge on here. Yeah, right there, that first one, where it would give you a little digitized picture of something, and it looked like what you would see on a graphing calculator. Just very, very basic. Picture of like an umbrella or something. And you'd have to go onto your keyboard here and spell it out. I was 4 or 5 years old figuring out ways to cheat at this. And then let me tell you about that really quick. I promise I won't be super long-winded, but it asked me to spell the word house. And so I looked around the room and I noticed that there was a box over on the shelf of my game Mousetrap. You know the one, the old Mousetrap board game. And I was thinking to myself, okay, if that's spelled M-O-U-S-E, then house has got to be spelled H-O-U-S-E. And so that's how I used it to kind of cheat. And I don't know why, but that has stuck with me all these years later. But anyway, a little bit of a fail on trying to get this thing to work. I was really hoping to see some of those games again. And like I said, I'll try to continue working with it. And if I do get it, you know, fully functioning, maybe I'll update you guys in a future today's time capsule episode. But either way, I've got a good spot for it over on the shelf where I'm going to keep it, because just catching a glimpse of this thing throughout my day immediately takes me back. So I'm really, really happy to have it. The VTech Learning Window. Now, let's travel back to 1986. And for those of you who were around and old enough to remember, what did that year look like for you? For me, that was the year that I started kindergarten, Buchanan Elementary School in Oklahoma City. And I actually went back there a few years ago to check it out, and I was only at that school for a year originally, but from what I can remember, it hadn't changed much at all. And my Saturday mornings at the time consisted of a lot of the things that we've talked about a ton on this channel. Sugary cereal, metal TV trays with cartoon characters on them, and that perfect spot on that 80s carpet right in front of the TV. Well, it had been 2 years since that original Ghostbusters film hit theaters, and as was the case with many successful film properties at the time, the next logical step was a Saturday morning cartoon and a toy line, and that's exactly what we got. And as a result, the real Ghostbusters was born, which first aired in 1986, produced by Deke Entertainment in partnership with Columbia Pictures Television. And in what turned out to be a really smart move, they brought over the glowing green ghost from the movie, named him Slimer and gave him a prominent role in the cartoon series. And this was in an effort to make the show more kid-friendly and marketable. And the show had a good run by Saturday morning cartoon standards at the time, 1986 to 1991. And an interesting note, which I'm sure many of you are already aware of, the name of the show, The Real Ghostbusters, was necessary because there was already a cartoon from Filmation called simply Ghostbusters, which starred a cartoon gorilla for whatever reason. And The Real Ghostbusters was meant to have a tone that balanced comedy, horror, and science fiction, from silly to spooky. And I think that this is why this is one of those rare 80s cartoons that can still be thoroughly enjoyed by adults, beyond the nostalgia filter. And the voice cast was pretty notable for the time. Frank Welker, Arsenio Hall, and Lorenzo Music, amongst others. And to me, Lorenzo Music will always just sound like Garfield. I was actually kind of happy when they swapped him out for Dave Coulier as the voice of Peter Venkman. And around the time of that switch, the show got just a little bit more kid-friendly, with an even bigger emphasis on Slimer and some of those sillier storylines. Now, the cartoon and the toy line launched in tandem, which makes sense because based on the success of the original film, they knew that they had a hit on their hands. Wave 1 of the toy line included figures for the 4 main characters, along with Slimer and the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Figures also came with little ghost creatures in the package. And later, the line expanded into the Fright Features variants, which I really liked as a kid, along with vehicles and some ghosts and monsters that were really cool that we never really saw in the cartoon series. And then, of course, the Firehouse headquarters. But beyond the toys, there were also lunchboxes and school supplies and posters and comic books and costumes. And this merchandise wave lasted just about as long as the cartoon did. So for many kids, The Real Ghostbusters was their first introduction to supernatural adventures within their cartoons. For me, I'd say this was definitely one of them, along with like Scooby-Doo and some others. And it was just another example of an 80s cartoon that wasn't afraid to include some emotional stakes in the storytelling. The characters dealt with problems and fear, right alongside the humor and the adventure. And like I mentioned, it was that blend of somewhat adult humor at times and supernatural storylines combined with kid-friendly fantasy that make this a cartoon that's enduring across all ages. Yeah, and just the designs of the ghosts and the monsters, and the featuring of green slime, and all of the gear, the traps, the proton packs, the cool vehicles, all of it is just etched into my memory. So The Real Ghostbusters really is just one more portal into the simple wonder of childhood. And I'll never get tired of talking about those types of things here on this channel. So, if you're still with me, grab a snack and a drink, and let's head back over to the Ottoman to do a couple of things. First, we'll do our usual, a little show and tell of some cool Real Ghostbusters items, both modern and vintage. Then, we'll hang out and talk some more memories as we unbox and assemble a sealed retro re-release Ecto-1. See you over there. Okay guys, welcome back to the Ottoman. Let's look at some stuff. And I do have a little pile of Real Ghostbusters merch that I want to go through with you quickly. But before we do that, I just wanted to do this really quickly because I thought it was cool. My curiosity got the better of me when I was preparing for this video, and I noticed that I had my 1988 TV guide sitting over on top of the console TV in that spot there. And I pulled it down and I was like, let's see what Real Ghostbusters was up against on Saturday mornings at this time. I thought that might be interesting. So I've got it here. Good old Alf on the cover. And I already marked the page so we don't have to do a bunch of hunting. Using my awesome red translucent vintage Kmart ruler, which I love to use as a bookmark. So, looking at Saturday morning here, And there was some real early stuff on the prior page that I just kind of glanced at, and then the one that jumped out at me was where is it? Gerber or Gerbert. Does anyone remember that? It was like an educational little puppet show that came on real early in the morning, and I just remember being like, okay, come on, Gerbert, let's get this show over with so I can get on to the real cartoons. So, and of course, this is 1988, so this is like the golden years for Saturday morning cartoons, in my opinion. But let's just take a look at some of these options that we had. Right off the bat, not a cartoon, but I see Welcome to Pooh Corner, which was a Disney Channel show that I remember seeing just on those preview weekends. You know, you got it just for the weekend. There's The Adventures of the Little Koala, which I remember from Nickelodeon, from Nick Jr. later on, I believe. You got Smurfs at 7:30, and this is a San Diego TV guide, so times are going to be maybe a little bit different than what you remember. Jim Henson's Muppet Babies, classic. Dumbo's Circus is another one, that like a live-action puppet mascot type show from the Disney Channel that I remember so clearly. Mapletown, Sesame Street. Okay, but as you get later in the morning, the competition really ramps up. So, for example, at 8:30, you had to choose between Muppet Babies and Flintstone Kids. Not an easy choice. And beyond that, you also had the Wuzzles, all airing at the same time. And here we are in our time slot at 9. We had Pee-wee's Playhouse right up against the feature of today's video, The Real Ghostbusters, along with Tom and Jerry, the Alf cartoon. I mean, my goodness. And just think, we didn't have DVR, or anything like that. If you were really into this stuff, you could maybe ask your parents to help you record some of this on a VHS tape so you could go back and watch it later. But if you're anything like me, I was just bouncing around. Like, I would watch these shows, and if there was a commercial on and I had, time, I would switch it. No remote control or anything, just sitting there in front of the big TV, jumping channels on commercials if I could catch, 5 minutes of one show and then 3 minutes of another. But what a lineup, am I right? Just so many cool things. I love flipping through these old TV guides, and we could spend way more time on this, but we've got other things to look at, so let's keep moving. Now, these are over here in no particular order, so I'm just going to kind of go through them as I grab them. Here we've got a Slimer. This was the topper for a bubble bath container, is what the guy told me when I bought it from him. And that would make sense. It looks like it would be the lid on a container of bubble bath. There were lots of different character-themed bubble baths back in our days, and this was just one of them. This thing displays great on a shelf. Love it. Here we've got a toy. Now this is not vintage. I forgot this guy's name. I do remember the original from childhood. I didn't have it myself, but I remember seeing it on store shelves and in commercials and at friends' houses. And so when they re-released this a few years later, I just had to grab it. What a cool looking toy. And I'm not going to do it right now, but you can, the idea is you can slam him on the back and that eyeball pops out and knocks over the Ghostbusters as they're standing there. Just so cool. Here we've got, this is vintage. This is one of the little ghost creatures that I was talking about that came with the figures. The main 4 Ghostbusters always had a little creature that they could battle or trap or catch in the package, and I thought that was a cool little touch, and these things are cool, little translucent plastic. I wish I had some more of them, but there's one example anyway. Sticking with toys, here we've got Fearsome Flush, which is another classic. Again, not the vintage. Got the re-release, but I think they're pretty much identical. Just a cool, gruesome, gross out 80s toy. Love it. And like I said, not all of these enemies and monsters and creatures appeared in the cartoon series. Some of them did, but not all of them. I guess we'll round out with the toys, the loose toys. Here we've got the classic Stay Puft. One of the few things that I can actually remember from watching the original movie as a kid. I mean, how could you forget that scene? Obviously not in scale with the figures. That would have been something to behold, but just love the look of this character. I think it's so cool. And I didn't research which variant of Egon this was before the video, but Egon was always my favorite, especially in the cartoon. I just thought he had a really cool look. I liked that he was, kind of like Donatello in the Ninja Turtles. He was kind of the brains behind the operation, and I thought that was cool. This is just, like I said, I don't know which variant, but I think it's awesome that he's wearing like lime green. His suit is like neon green. And I've always just thought that this figure popped with that color scheme. And I know he's missing everything, no accessories, anything at all like that, but fun one to fidget with. And like I said, looks great on the shelf. All right, so let's stick with Egon. And now let's look at some carded figures. Again, guys, re-releases. I'm not that far invested into going back and getting all the vintage ones when they give me identical things that, scratch the same itch. But look at this packaging. I know I've got some, synthwave music playing quietly throughout this section of the video like I always do, but can you almost just hear the cartoon theme song when you see this stuff? And not even just the intro. I love the ending credits when they're walking through the street and the confetti's falling. Such good memories of that intro and those closing credits. And I always thought these were a cool little toy gimmick, these little proton packs with the beams coming out that you could twist around. I always thought that was really cool, really creative. And you could see they all come with a little ghost creature. Grabber ghost, rapper ghost, gulper ghost. And I have the re-released Slimer somewhere. And you can see here they call it the Green Ghost because they hadn't named him yet. I don't think he got named until a couple episodes in. So yeah, there's Egon Spengler and Gulper Ghost right there. Now I have another version of Egon. I didn't go after all the Fright features, but I had to get my favorite character. And again, amazing packaging. I mean, look at that. And for years and years, I had a vintage one of these, but the tie was broken. I think a lot of times when you find the vintage one, the tie is broken off. They did some Stranger Things figures, I think a couple years back, that had these similar Fright features on them that I thought were kind of funny. I never grabbed one, but I thought it was a cool idea. Love that. That might be my favorite Ghostbusters figure. Back to the original wave. We already looked at this guy loose, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on him on card. But there he is. Stay Puft himself. Did he come first or did the Michelin Man come first? I'm just curious. A lot of similarities there. And you've already seen this. It's the same thing on the back. Okay. That's it for figures. I do have another toy that I want to wait till closer to the end because we're going to have to get up and move around. Let's look at some media. Here we've got the cartoon itself, the animated series, volumes 1 through 5. I need to eventually track down the others because I've cycled through these several times at this point. Pretty cool little set. I know they take up more space, but I like when they do, you know, each disc is in its own DVD case instead of like my Thundercats set that's, you know, half the thickness of this. It's like this wide, and it has like 24 discs crammed in it where they all fall out and the tabs get broken and the plastic doesn't hold up. I actually kind of like this way better, but small complaint. Just happy to have, you know, cartoons to watch. I think the real Ghostbusters has a YouTube channel, if I'm not mistaken, and they'll run full episodes. You know, they'll do like a stream where they'll just run a bunch of episodes back to back. So be on the lookout for that if you don't have the DVDs. Here we've got one of those comic books from Now Comics. Free giant full color pinup inside. I showed this comic in detail last year around this time when I was talking about Halloween comics. So I'm not going to go through all of it today, but I am going to set you down for just a second and pull it out because I want you to see the artwork inside. And as you know, if you've ever watched any of my comic book videos, we always have to look at the back cover first because it's usually a gold mine for nostalgic advertising, and this is no exception. Check that out. The Tiger Handheld's version of Double Dragon. Yeah, and these Tiger LCD games were horrible, but you know, they were better than nothing, and on a road trip, I would actually find myself being entertained by those sometimes. You know, if I didn't have a Game Boy or if I didn't have something else to do, it was better than nothing. Now, the art style is definitely different from the cartoon. It's just reminiscent of it, you know? It's the artist's take on these characters. And if I remember correctly, Now Comics wasn't really big on, they didn't spend a lot on advertising. I think you got that, you know, that back cover ad, and then pretty much the rest of the inside is just story. Which as a kid, I probably loved. Now I'm kind of like, hey, where are my Kool-Aid ads? So many of our favorite childhood cartoons had the print version. You know, they had the comic book version so that the adventures could continue beyond the TV. So I'm always glad to pick these up when I see them. All right, let's see. What else do I have to show you? I talked a little while back about a pack of stickers that I found at Target. This is random, but the art on these is really cool, and this reminds me of the Filmation Ghostbusters that I mentioned. That's what that reminds me of. And they did like big cardboard cutouts in this style of like a witch and a pumpkin and a cat, but they didn't do this one, and I really wish they would have, because if they would have given this to me like in a big, you know, cardboard cutout size, I probably would have hung it on the wall all throughout Halloween season. But as it is, we have just the sticker. Okay, last thing to show you before we work on the Ecto-1 is another toy from my childhood. Not the original one. I had to replace it, you know, years later. And I don't even know what this is called. I think it might be called the Ghost Zapper. I think that's what it's called. But I got this for either my birthday or Christmas as a very young kid. I don't know, 7, 8 years old, 6, 7, 8, somewhere in there. And what it is, it's a little light projector, and it has a little reel in it, and you can project the image of some of these ghosts and monsters on the wall, and it's kind of like you're zapping them. So I did put batteries in after the learning window fiasco. I did test this one out before I started filming for you guys. The light works, the sound does not. So we'll just have to kind of take it for what it is. But I think what we're gonna do, I think maybe what we should do with this, I think it might be fun. There's a spot that's been vacated in the walk-in toy box over there, where I pulled down the Ecto-1 box. So we could go in there, turn the light off and see if I can't get this thing to light up. Yeah, let's give this a try. See that big empty spot? And I am gonna put the box back in that spot because I liked it there. But yeah, let's use that to our advantage today. Let's turn the light off. Let's go in here, close the door. Okay, let's see. There you go. There's Slimer. Kind of fuzzy, but you can make it out. Let me see if I can switch it to another one here. Yeah, and there's another. And there's our pal Stay Puft. Yeah, so you get the idea. Really cool toy. I remember playing with this thing a ton as a kid. And last but not least for today, we've got, like I said, the Kenner Retro Re-Release Ecto 1, which I think came out in 2021 or somewhere in there, 2022. And again, the packaging art is one of the main attractions for me, so we'll be keeping this intact. It's probably going to go back in the walk-in toy box in its original spot, and I'll have to find somewhere else for the actual car itself, as you can see there. But yeah, I thought it might be fun to unbox this thing, put it together, and see what we're working with. Yeah, I'll be honest with you guys, a little bit of that excitement. Probably not to the level that it was when we were kids, but that's okay. If we can even get close to that, we'll take it. Now, when you guys got stuff like this, and let me not talk while I'm tearing paper. I learned that lesson in the last video that you couldn't hear me because I was crinkling paper around. Let me get this open and then I'll finish my thought. But yeah, when you guys got stuff like this, you know, for Christmas or birthday as a kid, did you have to wait for, you know, mom or dad to put all the decals on and put everything together, and you're just sitting there, you know, just anxiously waiting for it to be ready for you to play with? Yeah, we had some of that going on. I remember getting, like, I think my brother got the TMNT sewer playset, and my parents didn't realize how much work it was going to be to get that thing together and ready to go, and they were like, go play your new Nintendo games while we get this all set up. That's kind of what it turned into. You know, whatever new Nintendo game you got, that's what you did while your parents did this stuff for you. But I'm excited about this, guys. I didn't know it came with a little ghost. Really cool looking one too. Orange. Love the sculpt on that. It's actually awesome. Got the chair here, and then just what a great toy. You know, what a beautiful, simple plastic toy we've got here. I never had this as a kid. I of course remember it, playing with it at friends' houses and seeing the commercials and all that, but man, I'm just, I thought about never opening it up, but I'm so glad that I did. So let me take a quick look at these instructions, figure out where everything's supposed to go, and I'll check back in with you here in just a minute. Okay, I've got the decals on. Not perfectly, but they're on. Some of these are so hard to manipulate and get in their right spots. You know, these little tiny license plates. I did a pretty good job, I think, on most of them. Got the back windshield on. That back ghost is not perfect at all. But the Ecto 1 license plate looks okay, and I did a pretty good job on that one. So that really brought it to life, just adding the logos and stuff. Now I've got Egon strapped in to the little chair here. I know there's a mechanism that this is supposed to, like, use to drag and pull. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get that to work, but we'll give it a shot. Let me see what I can do, and I'll be right back with you. So I guess based on these instructions, there's a few different options on what you can do here with the seat, which makes sense. While he's in it, he's a little tall, but you can kind of put him in there and have him looking out the back. The green really looks cool, like that. And then of course you can, I guess, put him on top as well. Although I'll have to play with that because I'm not sure exactly how it's supposed to sit upright, but yeah, this is going to be cool. Let me see if I can get the little grabber thing working and see what that's all about. Okay, so I reconfigured it to where Egon is now sitting on the top. You had to reverse how he was sitting in the chair and switch those guns around. And just really cool toy design looking at this, I think that's just giving a kid options was smart. And I've got the little grabber thing attached to the Ghost, and I think I have it in grabber mode. You move those little exhaust pipes, you move them from one side to the other, and that's supposed to activate the mechanism that does this. Let's see if we can get it to work. Okay, so it seems like he's just kind of skiing. Let's see. Maybe I have it in the wrong position. Let's try it now. Nope, still no. I think there was maybe one other step I was supposed to take in here. So let me look at that really quick and then come right back. Yeah, this is not the easiest feature to get to work, honestly, but that's okay. It's kind of working. You can see it there, pulling the Ghost in. We got it to work once. I'll take that. But what a cool toy. Seriously. I mean, as a kid, this would have been right up my alley. I would have done what a lot of kids did and, like, you know, had cross-dimensional battles with these guys and my He-Man or my Ninja Turtles or my Thundercats. You know, and just mix the worlds up. That's what our imaginations were for back then, and it's definitely something that I would have done if I would have had the old Ecto-1 here. So let's take a couple more quick looks at it, and then we'll wrap up for the day. And there we are. So I hope that you all enjoyed revisiting the real Ghostbusters here with me today. And if you did, consider subscribing if you're new around here. Also, don't forget to like the video, but only if you actually liked the video. But for now, and as always, relax. Enjoy life and be kind. We'll see you in the next one.